Hello, Brainliners. Here's to another episode. Today we have a very special guest, Anna Rayhana, a student who went from ALA to Columbia University, which is one of the top 10 schools in the US. So we're having Rayhana today. She's going to tell us about her experience with ALA, how did she get in the top prestigious universities in the US. Donc, Rayhana, first thing we're going to ask is, how did you get in ALA?
I applied to ALA when the first time that I applied to ALA actually, because I applied twice. The first time I was for tronc commun, or I got rejected. And then I was very, very passionate about ALA's mission. حينتاش ALA stands for the African Leadership Academy, or it's a leadership school where you can learn so much about entrepreneurship and leadership and African studies. Donc, j'étais très hyped up et très passionnée. So I reapplied the next year. Donc, في ma première bac عاودت دفعت ل ALA وتقبلت الحمد لله ومشيت درت عامين تماك. كيفاش تقبلت en fait جيتي فاش كنت كنعمر الابليكيشن I spoke about things that made me happy or things that I loved. Et en fait, c'est ce que les écoles بحال ALA حتى les universités كيبغيو يشوفوا في الapplications. It's that they want to get to know you and who you are as a person and what moves you as an individual.
Okay, thank you so much, Rihana. So, if I come to ask you, what is the highlights and or like the low lights and highlights of your experience with ALA?
I would say highlight يعني أحسن experience كانت عندي في ALA كنت تختاريت باش نشارك في une exposition ديال Google Arts and Culture فاش كنت في ما دوزيام اني ديال ALA دونك ديك الساعات جيتي بلوس في الدومين ديال لا فوتوغرافي انا كنت قريت لي زار فيزوال فاش كنت في ALA وفاش تختاريت كانوا يعرضوا علينا في a very nice place and they had this like launch event and I remember في هذيك اللحظة بالضبط حمدت الله بزاف أنني كنت في ALA because the network is very strong. Like I wouldn't have had the opportunity for my art to be featured for Google Arts and Culture as an artist, as a small Moroccan artist.
Okay, thank you so much. So, what is can you tell us about like the top tips اللي قدروا يمكنوك to get in Columbia University?
I would say a low light, a moment I felt overwhelmed and sad was the first term of my second year because it was application season. كان كامبوس كامل كاع الناس اللي في السنة الثانية كان كلشي كيتقاتل باش يدفع لي زونيفرسيتي الأغلبية ديالنا كانوا دفعوا early decision وكانوا عندنا en même temps les examens كانوا عندنا par exemple chaque personne كانوا كيدفعوا ماشي غير université وحده كتدفع لبلوزيغ universités et donc la pression كانت كبيرة علينا و c'était notre deuxième année يعني le contenu académique كان صعب شوية and you have to keep up with that so I think هذاك first term was very overwhelming and that was probably the low light of my ALA experience.
Okay, Rihana, can you tell us شنو هما ال top tips اللي يمكنوك انك to get in access ولا to have access to prestigious university بحال Columbia University?
I would say you have to be very self-aware in the application process. When I say self-awareness يعني خاصك تكون صادق مع نفسك بزاف وتعرف اشنو نتايا بغيتي اشنو قاد تدير وشنو هما الاحلام والاهداف ديالك حيتاش فاش كتجلس مع راسك ما كتكذبش على راسك كتكون عارف باغ اكزومبل انا جلست مع راسي قلت باللي هادو هما النقاط ديالي هادو هما الاكتيفيتيز ديالي هادو هما الاهداف اللي بغيت نحقق من هنا ل10 سنين كنشوف راسي غنرجع للمغرب بغي نعيش في المغرب دونك دوكو فاش كتحط كاع هادشي ان بيرسبكتيف كتولي عارف شنو هما لي زوبسيون اللي عندك وشنو هما اللي وفي هادوك لي زوبسيون شنو هما لي زوبسيون اللي ساهل تديرهم وتحققهم ولي زوبسيون اللي شويه خاصك تخدم على راسك باش توصل لهم I would say literally like just a lot of self-awareness باسكو فاش كتكذب على راسك في the process you might end up creating this like delusion reality and then you get really sad because you're like oh I couldn't get into this university or I couldn't get this opportunity ولكن at the end of the day what it's all about what you feel like, the spaces where you feel like you're gonna feel welcomed and loved and celebrated, because those are the and I tell that to everyone who's applying for college. It's not just the name of the university. خاصك تشوف حتى l'environnement، حيت غدوز 4 سنين في هذيك البلاصة. و it might feel like l'environnement ولا الجو ولا هذا سي با دي شوز لي امبورطونت، ولكن راه فاش كتوصل بك العظم، يعني كتكون عندك الاكزامز وعندك الفاينلز وعندك بروجيكت، ومثلا انت ما كتحملش الثلج وطايحه طايح الثلج ويا انت با دوناش ناقص 40 درجه. Of course it's gonna overwhelm you and mess up with your head. So I'd say to wrap it up and link it back to the main point, you have to be very honest with yourself, very self-aware.
Okay. Last question is going to be, what is one advice that you can tell people, would advise people who are going to apply to American universities this year?
I would say one advice I would give to ولكن هما they're like kind of like connected. So the first one I would say, as I've said, be self-aware. In your self-awareness, par exemple, if you're someone who procrastinates things to the last minute, which I'm a big procrastinator, I had to create واحد le plan, une structure اللي من par exemple 5 شهور قبل ما نبوستولي لونيفرسيتي، 5 شهور قبل من الابليكيشن سيزون، خاصني نكون درت I wrote a first draft of essays, I looked up my favorite universities that I want to apply to. So having like a very detailed plan، ماشي غير توصل تبقى مثلا 2 سemaines deadline and then you're rushing through everything. parce que I'm assuming that a lot of people who will be applying غادي يكونوا في الباك، donc عندك الباك premier semestre هذا النقاط les examens. Donc I would say in your self-awareness, know how you work as an individual, or plan ahead. And another thing I would say, really surround yourself with people who remind you of who you truly are. Because as I've mentioned earlier, the self-awareness thingy, it's good to be reminded of where you're coming from, or what your aspirations are, and feel very grounded, because the application process can get very overwhelming or also very unsettling. Donc I'd say really surround yourself with people who love you, who know who you are, so that you can stay grounded, and they can also help you navigate the overwhelm.
Okay, thank you so much.